Welcome to another episode of GRADitude, everyone. And for today, we have a very special guest and fellow SPT here, about to graduate this year, which is so exciting. And Joey is here on the podcast. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So yeah, hopefully I graduate this year, assuming everything goes well with Corona.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. Unfortunately, there's so many students in your boat right now. So thoughts go out to all of you right now who are like, will I graduate? That is the question of the year. So we're wishing you guys the best. And for the people who don't know you, do you want to tell a little bit about yourself? And first, what got you into physical therapy?
So it's a long drawn out process because I am a second career student actually. So I was well, it's actually even longer if you conclude the fact that I tried to get into dental school twice, didn't get in, said, okay, let's stick with something dental related. So let's do dental hygiene. So did an extra 2 years after my first bachelor's for that. Then was a dental hygienist for 4 years. And then said, oh my God, this is awful. So let's find something where I can have like one-on-one patient care and like actually have the ability to talk to my patients without my hands in their mouth. So that kind of pushed me toward, in between that and fitness and like playing soccer and everything growing up, that's kind of what pushed me towards physical therapy. But I also kind of already saw the trends of healthcare reimbursements going down and everything like that. So I was like, okay, I've always been kind of like the entrepreneur type. So if I want to own my own business, I was trending towards, let's see if we're going to, that's my dog.
That's okay.
Trending towards going cash based. So it's like, okay, I've got to learn how to market. So that's kind of how I got into PTs because I wanted to do it, but then I was like, okay, I probably want to own my own business. So I was like, okay, I got to figure out this marketing thing. So I was listening to like literally any podcast I could think of. Like Jared Carter and Paul Goss were like the really first ones that I got into. I like Jared Carter's a lot just because I was like, oh, I'm in Texas too. So like it kind of resonated with me. I was like, he's got all the same restrictions that I would have. And so I kind of got into that. And then from there, that's when I ended up meeting Alex and Will in healthcare digital marketing and kind of going from there. So did a little internship with them, started doing my own, started figuring out marketing on my own, and then actually took on one client. And then from there, it's grown to several clients and having a course and everything on marketing. So it's been a pretty drastic transition, especially trying to start it all and do it all in PT school.
And at the beginning, let's not forget that.
Yeah, first semester was pretty tough because that was with all the gross anatomy, like spending like 8 hours a day inside a lab, and you just feel like there's no way you can ever do anything but be in a lab. So yeah, it was pretty rough.
But you made it.
I did make it.
So going back to first semester, do you want to just kind of talk about how that was and that transition, just in general for you, going from multiple years off and kind of jumping into physical therapy and first semester coming right at you?
Yeah. So luckily, I kind of had a little bit more experience maybe than someone first coming in. Because my dental hygiene program was a very like 8 to 5 program. So it wasn't like normal undergrad. Cause I did normal undergrad at Texas A&M. So like it was the normal, like you had 3 classes in a day and you could go sleep for 4 hours in between or whatever. So my dental hygiene was 8 to 5. So that already kind of got me a little bit more prepared for that style. But then I did of course have that 4-year break. So I was at least used to that. And then from there, when I was actually practicing as a hygienist, I had to retake some of my classes, either because prereqs or it had been more than 7 years. So I was actually like working while going to school and had a 2-hour commute at that time. So I was used to kind of already doing a lot during that time. So that already kind of prepared me quite a bit for it. But at that time, my wife was actually doing a residency up in St. Louis University, and I was down here in Dallas. So not that I'm glad that my wife wasn't there, but it did make it easier because I wasn't having to try to balance like time with her and trying to balance marketing, trying to balance my school and all that. And at that time, like realistically, I only had one client that very first semester. So it wasn't as much. But as far as like school, yeah, I mean, it was definitely like night and day difference compared to what I was used to. Cause I mean, we would stay up, we would get there at 8 a.m. and then we would probably be in lab till 6 or 7 p.m. every day. And getting from Dallas to where I was living with my parents at the time, that was an hour commute each way. So it was quite a bit. So it got a lot easier after that first semester. Well, I won't say easy. It was different. You kind of get used to the suck, is pretty much how I would term it.
You get used to the suck. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I like that. And also you do acclimate to it to an extent. It's not like,
Yeah.
Like you said, I hesitate to say it's easier, but it's not as bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the new normal is essentially what ends up happening. And I think that's how you can kind of take anything, is the more and more you do it, it just becomes the new norm and you adapt to those stressors. So I think I just maybe accidentally put more stressors on myself than others.
And you so casually say a 2-hour commute. And I just want to point out to many students who are also doing that or have a long commute, and they're like, you mean other people are doing that? You mean I can manage PT school and whatever else I want to do on top of it with that commute? And I just want to touch on that for a second. So how were you managing your time during that PT school first semester?
So with that, it was nice because I did get that semester they recorded a lot of our lectures. So I could actually listen to quite a bit of them during my commute, and I could listen to them at 2 times speed. Like, I don't think I would recognize my teacher if it was at 1 time speed. So like that helped quite a bit because I was able, I mean, if you're 2 hours, 2 times speed, that's 4 hours worth of content that you can listen to again. I will say I probably didn't sleep as much that semester. That just kind of comes with starting a new program, getting used to everything and everything like that. But in Texas, it's hard to really get anywhere without a pretty decent commute unless you live like right next to the school. And right next to the school is pretty expensive. So I was trying to save as much money as possible at that time. So commute was worth it at the time because we were already paying rent up in Illinois for my wife. But I mean, 2 hours is actually the shortest commute I've had during school. Later on, when we moved to Waco, it's 4 hours a day. So not fun.
4 hours a day. And what year were you in? Was it still first year?
It's right kind of transitioning in from first to second year. I say that. I'm trying to think of when she graduated in December, but then there's a little gap. Yeah, so I mean, it was right like 3/4 of the way through the first semester is when we ended up moving.
Okay. So instead of the, 1 hour commute, one way, it was the 2 hour commute.
Yeah.
So
that's assuming good traffic. I've had it hit 5 total.
Oh my goodness. And then how long were you doing that commute?
From essentially 3/4 of the way through the first semester until coronavirus. Because then we went online. So then I started saving like $400 or $500 a month in gas.
And having extra time to make extra money too.
Yeah. Well, it's been surprising. Even with more time, I've actually found that it's still harder for me to stay productive when I have more time because it just rolls into sleep or wanting to watch Netflix with my wife or something like that, where the other one kind of forced me into like a pressure of getting things done. So it's been interesting. I've been more productive, but I haven't at the same time. So it's weird.
That's like the most relevant thing that I've heard all break because I've been the same way. And it's just, now it's like, oh, you have a lot of time. So trying to find that, if you want to call it balance of being productive and then still being able to relax because you don't have to do the commute. You have all this extra time to spend with friends and family and pets, and you are just like, well, am I going to take 2 hours to watch Netflix? But then I have the rest of the day that I can do stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's really good. And now, so transitioning to, now COVID hit, and how has the online transition been? So going from commuting, and now you've been home and online, and now it's the end of the semester, like you took finals. So kind of tell us how that has been.
It's been nice from a commute side, just because I was tired of driving at that point. But it honestly has been 20 times harder to pay attention in class. But that probably doesn't help that I have like more than one monitor. So I'm usually like working on one monitor and I'm trying to pay attention on Zoom on another. My teachers were already boring, much less when they can't like tell if I'm paying attention. So like it definitely made it harder, because like balancing that, and like I also happened to launch, I guess it's about 9 or 10 weeks ago, I launched my beta course for marketing. So I was also trying to film that while managing clients, while they're trying to figure out what they're doing with their clinics, because some of them are closing, some of them aren't, some are trying to transition to telehealth, maintaining my group and all that. So it ended up being good timing for all that, as far as like, okay, I saved some time, but everything else kind of piled on all at the same time. So needless to say, my grades, I mean, I still made A's and B's this semester, but this semester was not my best performance. And I knew that going in, but it was also, I don't know if that would have mattered even if I was marketing. It was just my last semester of didactic classes, and I was just at the point where I didn't care. As long as I knew enough to like be good with patients and pass boards, that was pretty much my mindset going into it. Because it is hard to want to put a crazy amount of effort into like cardiopulm or something like that when you're like, oh, I think I get what I need.
Look, we feel that. Like Gabby and I are about to start the last semester of didactic, and it's crazy. Like the motivation is already just plummeted immediately.
It disappears.
For that at least. But then you have other things going on. Like you said, you were launching your beta, which I do want to get to, and you were trying to manage your clients with their stuff and trying to figure out like what are they doing with their clinics and your Facebook groups. And can you just touch on, let's start with the beta. So what have you created, whatever you're willing to share, and what is it?
So, well, I guess to start, so you can kind of understand like where I went from and kind of how I got to a beta. So I was doing marketing for clients for quite a while, and I really got to the point where I couldn't take on any more clients in between school and trying to like balance that with like spending time with my wife and everything else. So I was like, okay, I've got to figure out a way to like multiply me. So the only way to do that was really to start teaching PTs how to do their own marketing versus me trying to handle everybody's, because there's definitely an inherent need for us to be marketing. There's a reason that the public knows about chiropractors 20 times more than PTs. So we definitely need that. So I was like, okay, I need to make a group. And I was like, okay, because I didn't want to be in like Alex and Will, they have their own group, like they have their own message, they have their own stuff. And like, they pretty much told me like, hey, if you're wanting to do this, like you should create your own community, create your own like people that are wanting to like follow you. And so I was like, oh, okay. Like, so I created a Facebook group, and a year went by and I hadn't posted a single thing in it. I hadn't invited anybody, like literally got a notification from Facebook saying, hey, you created this a year ago, like a little memory. And I was like, oh my God, that was a year ago and I've been sitting on it this long. And so there was another PT, like a PT marketer that like created a group like 2 months prior, and they're already at like 400 people. I was like, I need to do something like with this. So I like just started trying to grow the group actively and continued to grow it and everything. And so I was just putting out free content and everything. So, but I was like, okay, I want to actually have like a full blown course where I can just go like put everything I absolutely know in there. So I put sales in it. I put like how to nurture a lead. So like how to actually, like once they opt into something for some type of offer, how to actually get them to come in the door. Because people can get leads all day, but if they don't show up, it doesn't really matter. So it has sales in it. Sorry, my dogs are so loud.
It's okay.
It's got sales. It's got like how to nurture a lead. It's got Facebook ads. It's got Google ads. It has YouTube, so how to like scale and grow that. But ultimately, it's going to have literally everything I know. So like how to build a website, how to optimize a website, email marketing. Like if you can think of it and I know enough about it or have tried it, then I'm going to have it. If I don't know enough, I'm going to test it and I'm probably going to put it in there. Because my goal with my course was essentially, I want to be the last marketing course that any physical therapist ever needs to buy. Because there's so many of them out there that are like one-offs, little like couple $100, or some of them are like $3,000, and you still end up needing to learn more by the time you're done. So I wanted it to be like literally the last course someone needs to do, but I was like, okay, I don't have any like testimonials for selling a course, and it's pretty hard to sell a course without any type of social proof. And the only type of social proof I had was like clients I worked with. And just because I can get results for them doesn't mean that I know how to teach. So I was like, okay, well, let's put out an offer for that. And so I was like, well, let's make this the easiest decision possible. And we'll say, okay, if you buy it, it's $1. But after 60 days, if you like it and I provided the value that you expected, I charge you $397. If you don't think I provided the value, I won't charge you anything. So there was absolutely no risk for anybody to do it, but I also had stipulations of, okay, if you like it, I also want a testimonial case study from you. And the 60 days is hit, and not a single person wanted me to not charge them. So I guess that's a pretty good sentiment of, I guess, my course and how it's trending. And it definitely took a different turn on how I was kind of putting stuff out, because originally it was like, oh, like now it's time for Facebook ads, but no one's running Facebook ads because everybody's closed. So then I had to kind of transition. So it's been interesting kind of changing it all throughout, but it's been really cool because had a lot of positive feedback from it, and everybody seems to really be liking it. And I think it's going to help a lot of PTs.
Okay, there's so many good things I could touch on right now. We'll start with this. How many people did you have in your beta, and were they all from your Facebook group that you finally had started up again after a year of sitting on it?
Yeah, every single one of them were in my group. Yeah, everyone. I don't think there's anybody that wasn't in my group. And only about 25% of them did I actually know prior to my group. So it wasn't like people had already like established relationships or anything like that. Only because I capped it at 10, because I wanted to keep the amount in the group low, so that way I could give as much one-on-one time as possible, get as much feedback as possible, and actually serve everybody the way they need to, versus opening it up as a beta, but then it's like 100 people, and it doesn't really do much good if you can't truly like figure out how to make it the best for when you go time for like a full-on launch. So I capped it at 10. It ended up selling out in less than 24 hours. So that was exciting. That was really exciting. But it was kind of like exciting, but not, because it was like you look like, of course, like you always want to help people, but when you're doing this stuff, like there is a financial gain with it. So you see them purchase and you're like, ooh, $1, $1. Like, so it's like, all right, now to actually put in the work, so they actually feel they need to pay the rest. So it's like, I made $10 today.
I love that.
Oh man. I was trying to think, sorry, I had to step out for a minute. So since then, have you finished your beta, or are you still going through it?
So technically the 60 days are over, but our filming timeline changed because I added an entire YouTube module of how to like start and grow a YouTube channel. And so that ended up taking longer than expected, because that wasn't in the original, like, this is what you'll get with the beta. But I pretty much asked everybody, I just pulled everybody in the group of like, what do you want to learn? and YouTube was what they wanted. So I still have some filming to do, but I'll have filming to do for the next year for that course because I'm just going to continuously put stuff in it. So it's technically done, but it's never really done. So I've got a lot of work because I am actually expecting my firstborn on the 24th. So interesting time to be bringing in a little boy into the world. So I'm like, okay, well, I've got to get some crazy amounts of filming done before he comes.
Wait, the 24th of May?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing. And so to be, oh man, that's awesome. Like starting your little family and knowing like you're done with didactic, you will be doing your course which you love. And so moving forward, I don't think we touched on this already, but you'll be going into clinicals, and when does that start?
It was originally supposed to start May 11th. They have not given us any details of a firm start date. It's looking probably closer to start of June, but they don't know. And then they're talking about adding like just some BS didactic filler work to try to keep people. Realistically, I think a lot of it's because they have to keep you full-time enough for anybody who is on financial aid. They have to have something for you. So it sounds like we may get something like that. I don't think it's going to be like full-time work or anything like that, and it's pass-fail. But they've yet to give us any details on there because I think they're just trying to figure it out as they can. Because my school is associated with a hospital, so for them to even open up their outpatient stuff and where a lot of our clinicals are set up, which we're all over the place, but a lot of our stuff is through them. They've pretty much said that they're not opening theirs up until essentially the hospital themselves has opened up fully to like elective surgeries and everything like that. So there's definitely a longer delay because we are affiliated with the hospital system. So that's kind of where I'm at with that start. So there could be a potential that we push further into, because we're supposed to graduate at the start of December. But our school already had more clinical weeks planned in our schedule than what was required. So we may be able to get away with it, but unfortunately my next clinical was supposed to be my inpatient neuro. So there's like a specific requirement for that for graduation versus like my last two that are outpatient ortho that I'm already done with my requirements for outpatient ortho. That's just what I want to go into. So I don't know if they're going to flip people around. They don't really know. So there's a lot up in the air. And then like my last clinical, last I heard, he may go under from like out of business from all this COVID stuff. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. So there's a lot up in the air. I don't really have a clue what's going on.
One day at a time is all that we can do in kind of this chaos of this ever-moving target of, are they going to open? Are they going to close? Can we go to the hospital? Like all of that stuff. And it's very, very stressful. Yeah.
I mean, it works out for me if assuming like he doesn't like Owen doesn't come late, is if he comes on time, that gives me actually more time to like adapt to like, holy crap, like there's a baby here that needs 24-hour care. So it's actually good timing because my clinical was supposed to be an 1.5-hour commute each way. So not having to worry about that, not having to worry about like being that far away and then my wife going into labor or anything like that. Like it's actually kind of convenient when it comes to that. So, I mean, there's always something bad, but then you can usually pull something good out of it. So I think it'll end up working out better.
I'm glad. And I'm really excited for you and your little family. All right. What do we have here, Gabby? We hit what got you into PT. We hit kind of your journey. Go ahead, Gabby. Sorry, interrupted what you're saying.
I know. I was just thinking too, like we're just now starting up interviews again. So we only really interview twice a year. And it's Christmas break and this time during summer. And so we haven't done a podcast episode. This is like our second one in a while.
In like 5 months.
Yeah.
So the other question that we always ask on here is, what advice do you have for current SPTs?
So are you saying current advice for
It could be
like
both.
for actual school and then for actual like maybe trying to make some money or something on the side?
Yeah, it could be both.
Okay. Really for school, I think a lot of it's realizing that learn, of course, as much as you can, but realize that grades for the most part don't matter. As long as you pass, then you'll be fine. I've talked to hundreds of PTs that they say when they hire, they don't even look at GPA. So if you're like freaking out before a test or you're freaking out on everything, realize like as long as you have that base knowledge, like most of what you'll learn is going to be on your actual like when you start working. Because most people have told me it usually takes about 2 years for you practicing to feel like you are like really know what you need to know and you can go in there without feeling like you need to prep like crazy. So like you're still going to learn even once you're done graduating, but like realistically your GPA doesn't matter. I know that's easy for like someone to say, like because I'll say that every time before a test, but then I'll still get like a little bit like high strung a little bit. But it is nice to know that like realistically GPA doesn't matter. Like the only time I would say like okay you really got to dial in your GPA is if you want to do a residency. Other than that, like it's not going to stop you from getting a job. So like prioritize stuff. Like if there's some type of like event that like you really like you would be disappointed a year from now that you wanted to go to, or there's something like that, I would try to make time for that. Because there's not a lot that you can actually make up after that to experience that again. And you're not going to remember, like I couldn't even tell you what classes I took 3 semesters ago. Like I would really have to think about what classes I took. Much less like, okay, I learned this specific thing for this test. Like I'm sure there's more in the back of my head than I remember. I hope so. But like don't freak out about all that because like it doesn't really matter for the most part. But I know most people in PT school are very type A, so I'm probably not talking to anybody that can actually control any of that, but that's okay. But yeah, so that's what I would say as far as PT school. And the fact that you're going to learn most of it on clinicals. Like I said, I've only been through one of my clinicals, and even just what I learned in that 8-week clinical was like, it's crazy how much of it starts to solidify as you go. And like, even for us, they told us, oh yeah, during this time, during our break, we like, evidently the med students, they study for their boards tests, and that counts as like being busy enough to stay along with their financial aid. And he's like, oh, well, that they're like, oh, I don't know if we're going to do that. He's like, because realistically, like, you don't know almost anywhere near enough until you've done your clinicals. So it sounds like there's so much of it that we learn during our clinicals that like, even if you're thinking there's no way I'll be prepared for boards or no way I'll be prepared to see patients, I think everybody will be kind of surprised what you do learn truly actually seeing patients. As far as like making money or trying to make your own social media or anything like that, as far as making your own brand or something like that, like realistically, just put yourself out there and publish. It doesn't matter if that's in written form with blog. It doesn't matter if it's videos, podcasts, anything. Like just get comfortable being uncomfortable. I remember the first time I wanted to get on a Facebook. Well, I didn't want to get on a Facebook Live. That was the issue. I was very nervous. Like I legit had to go to the restroom like 3 times before I hit the actual like button to start recording, because I was that nervous. And I'm not one who really gets that nervous. Like I'm a very calm person, and I got like super nervous to actually go live on Facebook. So just get used to doing that because those traits are going to be very good, just from a business standpoint, period. But if you can start building your own brand and start doing that, I would definitely recommend it. So just find a platform you like. If you like Facebook and you're wanting to make a group on some type of thing like that, I mean, it could be a group. If you like marketing, of course, you could try a marketing group. If it's not, it's like, oh, I really like soccer. Like, make a group about soccer. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. You just start to get people around you that actually like what you like. And from there, if you want to capitalize on it with money, then there's going to be a lot more potential because you already have people that know, like, and trust you. And then as far as making money, that's a tough one, because a lot of that is it takes extra time as far as what you want to get into. But I know there's like right now you could probably find a PT that is willing to at least pay you a couple $100s a month to run their social media, just because you're young enough to know how to run social media. So like if you're on a clinical and you see that they don't have a Facebook, like active Facebook or Instagram or something like that, like you could literally just make posts. Like you don't even have to know Facebook ads. You don't have to know any of that. Like there's a lot of them that like just inherently know, like I need to have some type of presence online. So you could just make easy posts on there for social media. Or like the other option, I know a lot of PT owners that want blogs on their website, but they don't want to write them. So you can easily make anywhere from $20 to $30 to write like a 1,000 to 1,500 word blog. And like you already know more than what you need, because it has to be written towards like an actual patient's level. So as long as you know a little bit more than a patient, you don't have to be like a practicing PT to write some of that stuff. I've probably seen inside different groups, I've seen a thread pop up at least once a quarter. There's a thread that pops up of like 20 PTs that wish they knew of PT students that would actually be willing to write blogs. So that's an opportunity that I've yet to see anybody capitalize on. I've actually had people in my class, I've told them like, hey, like if you want to write blogs, like I've got people that are actively interested, and most people just don't want to put the effort in. So that's honestly where it comes down to is you've got to put a little bit of effort in. I mean, there's courses out there that can help you learn all the marketing and all that type stuff. I'd say my course is not really meant for someone at that level, especially once I price it where I plan on pricing it. But like Alex and Will's course would be perfect for a student who's wanting to learn that type stuff. As far as marketing goes, I'm not sure. Do y'all have a course?
We do, but so our course is a little different. So it's not geared towards like marketing. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking. I thought y'all had one, but I didn't think it was marketing. So I didn't want to be like, all right, go to everybody else with this one.
No, you're good. We highly recommend everyone listening, like Digital Income School, go check it out. Will and Alex, they have amazing courses, and yeah, they're both amazing. Joey has some amazing stuff too. If you guys are like thinking about it, and maybe you've gone through Digital Income School and you're looking for more. And also, we should probably talk about this, if you don't mind saying some numbers briefly. You can be vague with it, but how much were you making when you first started and you had that one client versus where you're at now or as of recently?
So essentially when I first started, I went through Alex and Will's internship. It was like Digital Income School. So their course now teaches like editing, it teaches email marketing, how to build a website, Facebook ads, Google ads. I'm trying to think of what else.
Podcasting, blogging,
podcast editing,
all the things.
So like realistically, you could take their class and know 20 times more than what I knew when I first started. Like not even joking. Like the only thing I think that they may not have in there that the original one had was how to build a course. Because I like with ClickFunnels. So that was one of the things that like my first thing. So I had a very, very, very base knowledge after going through their like thing 2 years ago. Like they've leveled up what they're teaching quite a bit in the last 2 years. So from there, like I was a moderator in their group. So I was just answering questions. Like half the time I just had to Google the answer to the questions that people are asking. You'd be surprised how many PTs ask questions without actually looking to see if they can find the answer. So if you can just Google it and you'll find the answer, you start to become that person that knows a lot about the stuff, and you inherently learn a lot because you're actively looking all this stuff up. And so I answered enough questions to where at one point someone asked, how do you install a Facebook pixel on this thing? And for those of you who don't know what a Facebook pixel is, it's just like a little tracking data from Facebook. So if you go to a page, I'm sure you've done it, where you go to a page and then all of a sudden on Facebook, like you've got 5 billion ads for that thing. And you're like, oh my God, it's creepy. They're tracking me. Like that's essentially what a Facebook pixel is. And you can install that yourself. So I had someone who was wanting to know how to do that. And instead of just saying, here's a link, I kind of said, let's go above and beyond. And I actually did a screen recording of how to do it and sent it to him. And from there, he said, hey, I've been thinking about making a course on plantar fasciitis. So I was like, cool. Like, he's like, do you know how to make courses? I was like, well, I actually just went through a course on how to make courses. Like, how awesome. He's like, oh, how much do you charge for that? I'm like, I don't know what I charge for that. Like, I've never done that. So if I remember right, I believe I charged them $350, which is grossly undervalued based on how long it took me. I probably made like $5 an hour, if that, by the time I did it, because I was essentially like, that's the nice thing when you first start, like, you're getting paid to learn. And as long as you're upfront with someone and like say like, I just learned it in a course and I want to try it out with you. And it's like, most people are okay with that because you still have more base knowledge than them and they're willing to pay to not have to do it. So that was my very first one. I was like $350 and I was just like stoked, but like realistically at that time, like it was not much for how much time it took. And it kind of reminds me, because so before I even met Alex and Will, I was like trying to get into like some way to make money online. So like I had built a website on electric toothbrush reviews. I was going to try to make affiliate sales on selling toothbrushes. And luckily Alex and Will came like right at the perfect time to where I stopped wasting my time on that. But needless to say, I had gone through like 10 different ways at that time of like, okay, I can make money here or I can make here. Like my dogs, I've got 2 corgis. And so I decided I'm going to grow that and I'm just going to become Insta famous with my dog. I'm going to make money that way, or I'm going to create my Instagram and I'm going to try to get that famous. And I'm going to be like some person who sells, like has like a supplement sponsor. Like I'm going to do all this stuff. So I was like growing that. I got the dogs to like 20,000 followers because I was like, this is cool. And then I was like, it's not really fun. So I stopped doing that and I grew my Instagram to like 10,000 at the time. And I was like, okay, that's cool too. And then I switched. And so at that time I'd switched to like 100 different things. And of course, when I finally got paid by someone to actually do it, I was like, oh, there's something to this. But of course my wife just at that time was like, oh, it's just another one of his plans that he'll stop within the next month and we'll see what his next idea is. But I think that's kind of inherently like how most entrepreneurs are. It's hard to not want to like just keep trying to find ideas and everything like that. But yeah, I made $350 with that. And then I finished that and he's like, hey, do you know how to do Facebook ads? And I had gone through the little internship and it was very basic level Facebook ads. And realistically how we run ads now, both Alex and Will and I, like it's drastically different than what they were teaching and what I learned at that time, because we found more and more what works since then. But he's like, hey, do you want to do this? And I was like, oh, sure. He's like, well, how much do you charge? Like, oh God, I keep getting hit with this question and I have no clue. So I was like, $500 a month, like maybe. So I started advertising for him. And really for quite a while with him, it was like consistently like breaking even. Like we would get people, which come to find out, it was just because he never followed up and called half the leads and did all this stuff. But that's a whole different story in itself of how to manage clients and everything. But so it was $500, and I realistically probably only had him and maybe just like every once in a while, like for the anybody here who knows the Mobile PT League with David Bailiff, I built his course because I actually ended up talking with F. Scott, who's actually part of that course. He's out of Waco. And so we ended up talking. I built his course. I think I built that one for like 500. And then I've built courses for Ron Miller and Dave Kittle, the Cash PT guys. I've built like 5 courses for them. So for a while, it was like one Facebook ads guy that I was doing. And then I was just building a lot of courses. Like I built Stephen Dunn's Pilates for PT's course, like a lot of actual like PT influencers in the space. I was building their courses for them. And then like from there, it's like, okay, let's try to start taking on more clients because I didn't really like doing the courses. Like, and that's kind of what you'll end up like, if you do try to get into this stuff, you'll realize you're going to try probably 20 things and you're not going to like a good amount of them. But I think that's kind of inherently what you need to do. So you can kind of weed out what you do and don't like. because there's going to be stuff you absolutely don't like. Like for me, I've built websites. I hate it. Like I hate it with a passion. It's boring to me. Like maybe it would be better if I was building my own website, but it's also hard because you're trying to like keep marketing in place while trying to get like the customer to get their vision, while trying to like wait on them to actually get videos done and pictures done and all that. So it ends up being drawn out like way too long. So from there, I started just taking on more and more clients, and it's typically Facebook ad clients. And then that original guy, he just stayed on. And then I literally just used him like as like a way to test out different stuff. Cause he'd be like, hey, do you know Google Ads? I'm like, I've learned enough about it to try it. He's like, okay. So I tried Google Ads with him. I've built his website. I've tried email marketing with him. Like he's just been like my best client. Cause like he allows me to just like test anything. And like, there's even been times where I'm like, hey, I'm willing to cut my management fee completely this month if you will spend more on ads for this one thing because I want to test something. He's like, sure, like I don't pay any more. So I'm usually like, that's how I test out stuff, is usually with his account, is like I cut my fee. So I'm essentially using my money to learn all this stuff, so then I can apply it to other people and them not have to risk their money for it. But now, like fast forward, I've got like, right now I think I have 5 clients. I'm right around $4,000 a month. But I've got another one that's probably supposed to start at the end of the week. And then I've probably got 7 or 8 more, that are wanting to start the moment they open. So, I think that in between that, and if I launch my course, like realistically, I think I should be able to break 6 figures this year. So it's interesting, because then you kind of have to start thinking like, what PT job pays 6 figures, and what PT job allows you to stay home, and work from home. So that's kind of been my thing. It's like, okay, let's just grow this, see where we're at by the time school starts, or by the time school ends. And then from there, that's kind of when I'll make my decision of like, okay, am I just going to be doing both full time? Am I going to be doing them half and half? What I'm going to do? Because I know for sure I want to like actually see patients and continue with physical therapy. It'd be kind of ridiculous to go through this much school. My wife would probably slap me if I went through this much school and we spent this much money on everything if I don't even end up using the degree. But so yeah, long and fast. It took me quite a while initially to really grow it to where it was a crazy amount of money. And even then, like, I personally wouldn't say it's crazy. I mean, there's a lot of students that would be very happy with what I'm making right now, because it's plenty to pay for my school. I'm blessed to go to a school that's probably one of the cheapest in the nation. Our tuition and everything's only like 40 grand for the whole time we're here. Where there's a lot of PT schools that are like 150 by the time you're done. So it's definitely been nice to be able to kind of scale that, but I don't want people to think that like realistically you can scale to this within like a couple months, especially if you're in school, because it is a lot to do. And I've got a lot more systems in place now than I did before to actually be able to manage it a lot easier.
And you so casually said, you know, you can pay for your school with this. And so many students are like, wait, did he just say that? Yes. And yes, your school is a little bit cheaper. But there are a lot of students who are going to in-state schools, and it is a little cheaper. Maybe it's not that cheap, but it is very doable to make enough money to pay for your next semester. And yes, like you said, it's not going to be right now. You're not going to do it in the next month per se. Yeah. But if you start now, who knows what next semester will look like?
Yeah. And another thing to think about, like, even if you weren't able to pay off all of your school loans at that time, it's nice because the ability to make more money when you graduate is that much higher, not even just from like working as a marketer, but the amount of PT clinics that are more willing to potentially hire you over someone that doesn't know how to do any marketing. I've actually heard from several people, including Will himself, who said like as soon as someone found out that he did marketing, like they were like all over him. Like they were like, yeah, please come work here. Because everybody inherently knows that they need to market. They just don't know how. So it allows you to actually get potentially better jobs if you start to learn some of this stuff. Not to mention, yeah, you can pay for, if not all, some of your school. But when you start thinking about interest rates on those loans over the course of 2 years or 10 years, if that's how long you're planning on paying it, like $1,000 a month, that ends up being quite a bit over the course of 10 years worth of interest. So you can save a ton of money by putting a little bit more effort in. But like I said, there's a lot of people that don't want to put that effort in, and that's fine. I'm not saying that's wrong. It just means that you're not going to be set up where you want to be potentially 10 years down the road. So I'm a big fan of let's go crazy now, and that way we can kind of enjoy stuff later. My ultimate goal is to retire by 50. I don't know if that'll happen. It'd be awesome, but that's my ultimate goal.
And you are,
but I'm already 30. So
I was going to say, yes. I was going to say, we have to put this in perspective. So in 20 years.
And I will say, so there's going to be some people who know this, some who don't. My wife is an orthodontist. So I'm not saying that like we've never used any of her money. She makes good money. She didn't make good money all the way through there. I had 20 grand worth of student loans before I even came into PT school. So, I do have base money when it comes to her, but when you look at like how much money I've made and how much money I am projected to make, even then my entire school would be paid for. So I'm not saying that your situation is the same as mine. I know there's a lot of people who went to undergrad too that had to pay for everything. My first degree, luckily my parents paid for. My second degree I paid for. So I was paying for that while putting her through school and living and everything like that. So like I said, my situation may not be the exact same, but realistically what it comes down to is like what you're willing to put in work-wise. Because I have a lot of friends in PT school who are regularly taking out thousands of dollars and they're spending it on food, going out drinking, they're going out doing all this type stuff and not thinking about how that's going to end up affecting them later. So you can change a lot of things of how you actually live in school. And I'm not saying like, don't go have fun, don't do all this stuff, but like, do you really need to spend $15 every meal? Probably not. So there's lots of ways to do it. And then just making extra money in school is just going to make that much better as you go. But I did want to preface like, yes, I do have a wife that makes good money. So I'm not going to say that it's the exact same situation for someone else, but when you look at how much I've made and how much I will, I'd still be in the same situation. So it does make it a little bit easier to kind of have those risks when you know that like I say that it actually maybe hurts me, because knowing that she's there means that I don't have to push as hard. Because I know I can always fall back on that, where if I was actually single and I'm trying to make this work, I probably would actually put in twice the hours, because I know it has to work. So it's just kind of how you look at it. It's real easy to say, oh, he's handed this, or he's got a wife that has this money, like blah, blah, blah. But like, it's just a matter of what you work. Like I said, I know several people who have spouses that make good money, but they're literally doing nothing. So you just got to put in that work.
And that's a big thing, is the effort, because, as students, like, yes, you're already working hard with, going through each semester, going through school, like making sure that you pass everything and you ultimately take the boards, and then you're a physical therapist. But if you're really serious, and we've said this multiple times, like if you're really serious about this, then you do have to put in the effort. Like it's not just going to magically come. And although all the courses that you may take and like take everything, but if you're not putting it into action and if you're not trying things or reaching out to people, then this is not going to happen. Like this is Joey's unique story. And the reason why we wanted to talk about it is because what he's doing and, what he's had to go through this whole thing, and really just put into perspective, like, it is possible for you, but it does take work and work outside of studying. And there's going to be some nights or some days where you don't want to do it. and you're exhausted on top of school and exams and practicals and everything. Like, it's not easy because you're taking on an extra thing. But Joey, would you say it has been worth it, like, to this point?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely been worth it. I said you definitely nailed it. I mean, it's definitely a ton of work, and there's a lot of nights where you would rather just go to bed than worry about it. And I don't know how it always managed, but I always had something due for a client at the same time I had a test the next day. It just always worked out that way. I've gotten better at trying to plan all that stuff around. Yeah, that's exactly how it ended up working. But like I said, I mean, if I'm commuting 4 hours a day and I can manage this, there's quite a bit more time in most people's day. I will say that I fell off the wagon with working out as much as I was pre-PT. I've kind of gone in cycles. It's like, okay, I've got a month here where I did decent, and then I did bad for 3. So usually there's something that ends up falling off. And I think that's an important thing to understand, though, is that with anything, like, people like to say that there's balance in life and you can balance all this and balance all that, but most of your most successful people, and I'm not even saying like me, but like even like your entrepreneurs or your athletes or like all those type things, like most of your most successful people are ones that actually have some type of imbalance in their life. And it's because they've put more effort into the thing that they really like or the thing that they care about. So you kind of have to prioritize what you think is truly like important to you. And that may be grades, and that may be making sure you have a 4.0 in school, and it may not be making money. It may be working out. It may be spending time with family. But knowing that typically there's something you do have to give up to an extent to get something else. It's just making that decision of what you want it to be.
I like that. It's an intentional imbalance, right? Based on your priorities, based on what you're looking to get out of life. And PT school, which is part of life, is not your entire life. And we just want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and being open and talking about this thing that a lot of students like are avoiding, like making money in PT school. We appreciate it so much.
Yeah, not a problem.